How tall do you think the little guy is in the middle on your cover of your book, Genesis 6?
According to they claim he's right at 6 feet. When I got that from a group of people in London that have the only photos of these guys around. Also in the book, I have a picture of a 12'2" Irish mummy. And it's fascinating because, later in the show we can get into the mummy issue, but the point that's fascinating is if you take guys that are all the way up to 36 feet tall, 20 feet tall, the Emperor of China had two 15-foot guards. Charlemagne himself was surrounded by rather large individuals. We have a Roman emperor named Maximinius who was a giant himself. His wife's bracelet, George, would fit around his thumb. We're talking about people that are, we're talking about people with big egos, big appetites, and incredible strength. We're not talking about the medical situation that you see sometimes on the History Channel where they show giants as being these guys that don't live very long. Obviously, like Andre the Giant, who was a wrestler. Right. We're talking about guys with unbelievable strength, unbelievable knowledge, and unbelievable wisdom. On the website, I even show some of the Incan kings, I-N-C-A-N, Inca, from the Inca Empire. Basically in the museums of Peru that have 4 to 5 times the cranial mass of a standard human skull. So we're not only talking about big guys, we're talking about people with incredible intelligence, and we're talking about an answer that obviously classical anthropology and archaeology, these guys don't want to deal with this. I think it was David Patrick Childress that coined the word Smithsonian Gate. In other words, a cover-up of history that's rather pronounced. And when you begin to dig, as I began digging over 30 years ago, you can find out that the reports of newspapers in America, of newspapers around the world. Interestingly enough, after I did the last show with Art, somebody went on the website and they sent me from Eastern Europe, they've already sponsored I guess you'd say an undertaking to go into some of the caves where they found a whole, basically, cavern of giant skeletons. And in the New Ancient American, which is a magazine that's put out in America, they found the most contemporary find. It's someplace in desert Southwest, and it actually shows the pictures of the giants, shows the cave, etc. So basically, interestingly enough, too, is that when you look at this, you see that there is a very, very, how should I say, skittish archaeological base out there that doesn't even want to deal with this.
I went through this video, and some of the things that were very interesting were when he was reading historical accounts from various people in the 1600s that went to Peru, when they conquered the Incas. But what's interesting is if you look into their writings from various Dominican clerics and monks and just Augustinian monks, and they were not just monks. Some of these people were also just scientists that were, commissioned by the church as well, and historians that were commissioned by the church. And there's several writings they cite in this movie where it clearly indicates that there were giants. And here's the interesting part. Here is the interesting part about all this.
You probably know us as just a bank, but bank is only half our name. We're also 100% Kiwi. By banking with us, you're helping these amazing organisations support, develop...
And here's the interesting part. Here is the interesting part about all this. The history books that you read when you were in high school, when you were in middle school, were written by historians who read from these historical works, various historical works, and they just picked and chose what they wanted to present. So they read something like this here. Reginaldo, I don't know how to pronounce this, Dominican cleric and chronicler, a brief description of the land of Peru, 1595. Here we go. There were once giants here, and natives say they don't know from hence they came. Their houses were 3 leagues below the anchorage, made of 2 gables with very large beams. Now, actually what they're showing in the scene here was quoted, I think, a little bit later on, but what they were is actually 30-foot tall giants that were basically rotting, that they found in around the 1600s when they conquered the Incas. Rotting corpses of giants that were 30 foot tall that they ended up burning and incinerating, just destroying them, because they were used as idol worship in a cave. So this is in a cave, the setting is a cave, and they considered them gods. 30-foot tall giants, hundreds of humans sacrificed to them. Okay, this is what they encountered in a certain village in Peru. So some crazy stuff, obviously, right? But I'm not going to play this video, obviously, because I'm just trying to give you a little bit of a review of this video, just show you a couple little stills from the video, and encourage you to go buy it because it's really spectacular. I mean, I haven't seen the whole thing, but it's really nice. It's only $9.95. And actually, you can rent it for $4.95. You can pay $5 and watch this whole thing. But I paid so I could have it basically, like it says here, you own this or whatever you want to call it. But which means I can just play it whenever I want to. Added to this are known traditions that all these giants, whose bones are still seen until this day in this beautiful place, died in the flames because of young, handsome men. These Indians did not know how to... Oh yeah, I wanted to tell you about the scene. I'm not going to tell you everything, obviously. I'm just going to tell you a few things from this video. This is really spectacular. This is just so spectacular. Okay, this is from an Augustinian monk, anthropologist. He wrote it in the Moral Chronicle of the Order of St. Augustine of Peru, 1663. Okay, so what this guy is doing is he's retelling what these... do they call them Peruvians? These people who lived in Peru, that I guess they were part of the Incas or whatever, however you want to call them, Incas, Peruvians, I don't know what you call it, Indians. Okay, we'll just call them Indians here. These Indians from that region have the story that was passed down to them about giants. Some of the antediluvian giants, from what I understand, they came to the land and basically took over. They're about 15 foot tall. They took over and they're killing off some of the people and basically controlling the land. They had basically control of the land, sort of like overlords, I guess you would say. And what they would do, they came in these reed-formed ships. They somehow made ships out of reed. And when they came over, they had no women. It was just all male, full and giant offspring. And what they would do is they would steal the women from the Indians. What ended up happening, and this is what's being said here, a young, handsome man in the sky took out a sword and threw a lightning bolt down on these giant Nephilim offspring, incinerated them. So what we're talking about here is likely an angel of God. Usually angels of God are considered to be very handsome looking men, with a sword, basically threw a lightning bolt and destroyed them all. And this is the story. This is from the Book of Enoch or Book of Jubilees. This is a story from Indians in Peru. It sounds exactly like something, it sounds kind of like what you see in the Book of Enoch. It's just, it sounds like it really correlates. And all these myths, as they call them, myths, correlate so well with these stories, these ancient stories from the book of Enoch, Jasher, and Jubilees, which also mysteriously were buried. So we had the Catholic Church, Rome, the Vatican, burying the book of Enoch, which was rediscovered in Africa in, I think, 1780s or so. We have the book of Jasher and Jubilees, which also was, essentially kicked out as being pseudepigraphia, or basically erroneous, falsely ascribed texts. These books are critical to understanding Genesis 6, right? But the church got rid of these books. The church, we're talking Rome here, gets rid of all these giant skeleton bones. This church, right? Who are they really serving? And now they're talking about some aliens coming to be a part of society, and that aliens could get saved. We know that this Vatican is working with the Nephilim. It sounds to me that's what they're doing behind the scenes. It's pretty obvious to me.
So that was God Rules. Awesome. Awesome, awesome.
From secret chambers far beneath the Great Pyramid,
So you need to subscribe
to the
to him.
discovery of a giant prehistoric creature in the Mariana Trench, to exploring the deepest hole.
Okay, yeah, subscribe to him.